Thank you very much for the kind introduction, and I would like to thank Sivita for hosting this event, and Christine for seeing you again and being very kind to invite me here to speak to you all. And especially I would like to thank all of you for coming here so early in the morning and listening to so many directives the Natilda fasting gave you. You have to speak loud, you have to say who you are. And then I could have sat there and spoke as well, but what I did was I violated her guidelines. So you all also free to perhaps not listen to everything she has to say. So really I'm very happy to be here, mainly because my first trip outside of India, because I was born and brought up in a Tibetan refugee camp. I went to Tibetan refugee school, then went to Delhi University to do my undergraduate degree, then law degree, and then I got Fulbright scholarship to go to Harvard Law School, where I spent 16 years doing my master's degree, doctorate degree, and I was quote-unquote happily employed from 2004 to 11. Then in 2011, I got elected. Then I left Harvard Law School, my job there, in America, and the Cambridge, where Harvard Law School is located, is also called People's Republic of Cambridge. It's very left-leaning. And I left that place, and then also I left Starbucks, and then compromised for Indian chai, which is equally good. So Cambridge is good, but Dharamsala is equally beautiful as well. And then you all are welcome to come to Dharamsala whenever you want, especially in the fall when the weather tends to be cold here. Dharamsala is beautiful in November and December. How does that sound? And you will have full daylight, you know. So you all are welcome to come. It's a beautiful place, and we are happy to host you. And then when you come to Dharamsala, the Tibetan leaders will meet Norwegian people, you know. And then I would like to really extend my heartfelt appreciation to the love and very welcoming demonstration shown by the Norwegian people when His Holiness came here just 2 weeks ago. And then he's going to come back again. So as you know, His Holiness doesn't care who meets him. But as long as people are happy to see him, he always comes back. As soon as he landed at the airport in Dharamsala, he told me, oh, I have to go to Norway again because the Sami parliament invited me, leaders invited me, and then also the ISFIT, International Student Festival in Trondheim University, invited him again. But I was told it's in February, and it will be very, very cold and dark, but I'm going there anyways because they have central heating. We in Dharamsala don't have central heating. Because in winter in Dharamsala, it's like you have to make do with the sun that you get during the day, survive the night, and then, you know, proceed with the next day. Actually, it's warmer outside the house than inside the house in winter in Dharamsala. So you're warned. Till December, it's beautiful. Now, why it's a special for me, as I mentioned, International Students Festival in Trondheim. I came here. My first country outside of India was Norway. So when I came in, I think was in 1992, I went there. The conference was, now it's in February, but at that time it was in September. So Delhi tend to be quite hot in September. So I had my few clothes, and as soon as I landed in Trondheim, the students who were supposed to receive me came a little late. They were late by maybe 15 minutes or 20 minutes. I didn't know that was a Norwegian tradition, but I was stuck at the bus stop alone. Then suddenly what I saw was snow coming down. And I opened my suitcase. I put on everything that I had because I was freezing, because I never thought that I would see snow in September when it's hot and humid in Delhi. So that was my first experience. Then I went to the International Students Festival. Students were exciting, and then the Prime Minister came and she talked about, Norway being a flag bearer of democracy and human rights and freedom. We will always stand with you people as long as you're with that. And I was a student. I was very inspired. I said, oh, Norway is not only cold but clean. Everything runs good. Even the prime minister is saying they are for democracy, they are for human rights, they are for freedom. And I thought that's what Norwegian people are, and that's what Norwegian leaders are as well. So I was very much inspired. In that sense, I was disappointed with the recent event, which I'm sure you will ask me during Q&A as well. Then I thought, oh, that's what Norway was, and it isn't so. So it raised a question recently. Now we will discuss that a little later, but I'm here to inform you, unfortunately, about the situation inside Tibet, which I'm sad to say is not a good news, it's sad news, and I'm glad that you all have finished your breakfast, if you have done, because you don't want to have early morning breakfast while listening to a sobering or a not so good news. Now at the moment, Tibet is under occupation. So, and Tibetans are suffering, experiencing political repression, economic marginalization, social discrimination, environmental destruction, and cultural assimilation, if I put it that way. Now, Tibet is under occupation because historically, even Chinese historians, they don't challenge the fact that Tibet was an independent country. And to prove it, we have a treaty in 821 and 23, signed by Chinese representatives and Tibetan representatives, which says Tibetans will be happy in the great land of China, Chinese will be happy in the great land of China. So they're recognized by Chinese and Tibetans. So even the Chinese historians don't dispute the fact that in 8th, 9th, and 10th century, Tibet was an independent country. Now, other than that, another document is called 17-Point Agreement, which was signed in 1951. And the preamble says, Tibet shall return to the motherland. That's after the Red Army took over China in 1949, and the army had already marched to the Gongbo area. So, under duress, under force, that agreement was signed in 1951. May 23rd, 1951, called 17-Point Agreement. Even that agreement says Tibet shall return to the motherland. If Tibet was not an independent country, where it was returning from. So clearly, even the Chinese scholars and Western scholars agree for the fact that from 1911 to 1951, at that time, Tibet was de facto an independent country. Hence, it is under occupation now. It was an invasion and occupation. Now, I mentioned political repression that is going on in Tibet now. If Tibetans organize any form of protest in the streets of Lhasa or even in a remote nomadic area or villages, you just Google, they are arrested. If there are 3 Tibetans or 2 Tibetans in the streets, they are arrested. Recently, there was a YouTube of where a single Tibetan was walking the street. And then, within few minutes, you can see him getting arrested and bundled up in a car and disappears. Now, if there's a mass demonstration, forget it. You will be arrested and you'll be shot at. So any form of political expression or freedom of speech is denied to the Tibetan people. And the consequences are very severe. You get arrested, you get tortured, and prolonged imprisonment, and often you die. Or even if you're released, you come out so sick that there are many reports of former political prisoners being released, and within few weeks and few months' time, they die. Now, economic marginalization. If you go to Lhasa, I can give you 70, 50, and 40. These are the 3 figures. Now maybe it's almost 80. 70% of shops, hotels, restaurants in Lhasa are owned or run by Chinese. Now, Lhasa is the capital city of Tibet. That's where Tibetans live. If your 70% of Oslo is owned or run by Chinese, how would you feel as a Norwegian? Now, 50% is Communist Party. So there's a central Communist Party and then local Communist Party established to colonize Tibetan people, or Tibet, and to govern them. 50% of Communist Party members, from the party secretary to the lowest level, even the postmen, are Chinese. Again, how would you feel if the more than 50% of your government is Chinese in Norway? Now 40%, so 70, 50, 40. 40% are Tibetans who work very hard. They have high school degrees, they have college degrees, but they are unemployed in Lhasa. Now, despite your hard work, if you don't get jobs, how would you feel? Now, social discrimination. Again, I can give you many examples. One, socio-economic discrimination is very clear. If you go to Lhasa, there's a photo of a Chinese shop, small shop, advertising employment. If you want a job, apply within. But the board says, if you are Chinese, we give you 50 kroner a day, and if you are Tibetan, we give you 30 kroner a day. It's just a public display of a salary that they'll give you to a Chinese or to a Tibetan. Now, how would you feel? You have to walk through the streets and suddenly outside this restaurant says 50 and 30. It's blatant display, public display. This is how Chinese people think, and this is how Chinese people treat you, and then the government allows it. So there's clearly a discrimination against Tibetans. Now, environmental destruction. Tibet is very rich in mineral resources. Hence, many companies are very, very interested in mining. Tibet has the second largest deposit of copper as far as China is concerned. Borax, iron, even uranium. According to Chinese mineral experts, there are 132 different kinds of minerals in Tibet. And all these are exploited by Chinese companies with the sanction or the support of the Chinese government. Unfortunately, but the distribution of the profits or the income is not up to the international standard. In fact, no standard at all. Normally, you expect at least 50% distribution to the locals, because after you extract all the minerals from the village or the nomadic area, the village is left with nothing. In fact, if you use chemical and poison to extract it, then even the land is polluted. But this kind of extraction is going on. Locals are neither consulted nor provided any benefits, because Chinese, they bring their own Chinese workers to exploit mines. That makes it worse. For example, Gamda mining is an interesting, very interesting phenomenon. It's near Lhasa. There was a disaster. Gamda mine collapsed. According to Chinese media reports, 92 people died, and 3 of them were Chinese, meaning 89 of them were, 3 of them were Tibetans, meaning 89 of them were Chinese. Now, we expect more people died. But the Gamda mining, it's an interesting experience. So the company bought it from the local authorities at a very cheap rate. They started mining it. Then that mine was given the Model Mining Award by the Chinese media and Chinese authorities. And that became very popular. And then they went public, and they got around 5, and then they got public, and they sold it, quote unquote, to the Chinese government or Chinese government run company for $500 to $600 million. So the private company bought the land, or rather took the land from Tibetans, and then it started exploiting it. It was labeled model mining, then sold it to the Chinese government for $500 to $600 million. But the money went offshore to Caribbean islands. Then it collapsed. Now, if the model mine bought by the Chinese government is collapsing and killing Chinese and Tibetan people, you can clearly understand what kind of standards they practice in mining different Tibetan areas. That's why Nomads are out in the streets, farmers are out in the streets protesting. Now, Tibet is also called the third pole because after Antarctica and Arctic, Tibet has the third highest reserve of ice. And the difference being Antarctica and Arctic, when it melts, it goes to ocean. Tibet, when it melts, the Himalayan mountain, it forms glaciers to fresh water, which provides fresh water through rivers to all the neighboring countries. Essentially, one could make an argument that because the major rivers of Asia flowing to India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and China are from Tibet. For example, from Tibet, Satluj River, Indus River flow to India, then to Pakistan. Brahmaputra River from Tibet to India to Bangladesh. Mekong River, and then Mekong River flows all the way from Tibet to Southeast Asia, all the way to Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. Yangtze River, we all know about Yangtze Dam. Yellow River, the bed from where the Chinese civilization flourished. They all flow from Tibet. So essentially, the Tibetan plateau provides river and fresh water to 25%. If you combine India and China together, maybe around 50% of the world population. So Tibet is that precious as far as water is concerned. Now, many scientists and experts say nowadays wars are fought over energy. Before, wars were fought over land. Soon wars will be fought over water. And Tibet is the source of fresh water for that area. Not just that, Tibet Plateau, from climate point of view, is very, very important. The monsoon in South Asia and Southeast Asia are affected, directly affected by Tibet's environment. The mist formed over Indian Ocean, forms cloud, hits the Tibetan Plateau, and monsoon is formed. So the delay in monsoon in South Asia and Southeast Asia affects millions of people, farmers, and it has direct relationship with Tibet. And according to environmentalists, jet stream over Tibet affects climate all the way to South America, perhaps Europe as well. So Tibet is that vital as far as environment is concerned. Yet, the blatant exploitation of minerals is harming the environment. Poisoning the area is harming the environment. And then that's why nomads and farmers are out there in the streets protesting. Unfortunately, if you look at the genesis of Tibetan protests from 80s to 90s to 2008 nationwide, you can clearly see, as I mentioned earlier, you protest, you're arrested, you're tortured, you're crippled, you disappear and die. The pattern is so similar. It has created a fear among Tibetans to fall in the hands of Chinese authorities. Because once you fall in the hands of Chinese authorities, prolonged imprisonment, torture, and death. That is why the sad cases of self-immolation, 130 Tibetans have burned themselves, self-immolated. Now, if you look at the footage, video footage of some of them, even in their almost near death, they burn themselves, 95% burned. Few words that they can say is often, "Don't make me fall in the hands of Chinese police." They're nearing death, but fear of falling in the hands of Chinese authorities so scary, they utter that word. Meaning, self-immolation is happening because of the Chinese authorities' treatment of protesters before. So there's a direct causality between how Tibetans are arrested, even for simple protest, and self-immolation. Now, as far as we are concerned, we have discouraged self-immolation categorically and consistently because we believe life is precious. As a human being, one should live and live to see your freedom and live and protest. But because this environment is so repressive and treatment is so harsh, Tibetans seems to be forced to commit self-immolation. So the blame squarely lies in the hands of the Chinese authorities. Of course, they blame us for being the instigator. But of this 130 self-immolators, 110 or so are male and 20 or so are female. And majority are not monks and nuns that Chinese government alleges, majority are simple farmers, nomads, and especially younger generation. Why I say this is Tibet has been under occupation since 1950. It's more than 65 years. Now, but people in the streets, including self-immolators, are those who were born and brought up under Chinese system. They were given Chinese education. The Chinese government says, oh, Tibetans are benefiting economically. If that is the case, these are the beneficiaries. Now, if they're out in the streets and protesting, what does it say? It says that even the third generation of Tibetans, those who have never met His Holiness Dalai Lama, or never seen me or heard of me, are out there in the streets, meaning the repression is so severe, there is resentment. And this is said by none other than Mao Zedong himself. Mao Zedong said, wherever there is repression, there will be resentment. And this is what's happening inside Tibet. So hence the blame lies squarely with Beijing government, and so does the solution. Because here, I want to propose where, as I was asked by Rattle Fasting, about middle way approach. Tibetan administration stands for middle way approach. This is our policy. This was the idea of His Holiness Dalai Lama, endorsed by Tibetans inside and outside Tibet. Middle way approach is the middle of the present repression or the status quo and separation or independence. So what we say is that the repression of Tibetans ought to end as soon as possible, and Tibetans be granted genuine autonomy as per Chinese laws, and Tibet will be within China. For that, we are willing not to seek separation from China, not to seek independence of Tibet. So this is the middle way approach. So this is a win-win proposition. China says their sovereignty is very important, their territorial integrity is very important. We say, fine, we will not challenge China's sovereignty and territorial integrity, but give us genuine autonomy as per your laws. That's what your law says. These are the rights Tibetans ought to enjoy. Implement it. We could take that as genuine autonomy. And Tibetans in that sense are as reasonable, as moderate as possible. Now, this is the middle way approach, because we believe our path is nonviolence. We want to solve the issue of Tibet through dialogue. So this is a win-win proposition. If Tibetans are granted genuine autonomy in place of repression, this will bring stability in Tibet, and this will be stability for China as well. So this is the moderate, reasonable stand we have. Unfortunately, Chinese government refused to accept this as of now, even though from 2002 to 2010, representative of His Holiness Dalai Lama and the Chinese representative met 9 times to have dialogue, to find a solution, but there was no breakthrough. Since January 2010, we are in stalemate, but our policy still remains. We are committed to nonviolence, we are committed to dialogue. Hence, we are willing to find a peaceful solution to the Tibet issue. So this is our stand. Now, final note. In 2011, His Holiness the Dalai Lama devolved all his political authority. He separated the church and the state. Now, institution of Dalai Lama has been both political and religious leader of Tibet for 400 years. But he ended that in 2011. And he separated the two. And it so happened that I was getting elected at that time. On March 10th of 2011, he made the announcement. March 20th was the final round of my election. Till then, I thought I was going to Dharamsala to work for the Tibetan people and also work for His Holiness Dalai Lama. That would have made my job a little easier, because you make the decision and go to His Holiness Dalai Lama and get his signature. Once he signs it, you show to Tibetans, he say, hey, His Holiness has signed it. If you criticize, you take your chances of going to hell, That could have shielded me from a lot of criticisms. But on March 10th, just 10 days before the election, he said, no, I am devolving all my political authorities to whoever is elected next. and I was the front runner. I was like, oh my goodness, I nearly lost my balance. I said, my job is going to be more difficult. Now you have to fill in the shoes of His Holiness Dalai Lama, the Nobel laureate, global statesman on nonviolence and peace. Who am I? Nobody. When I looked at the shoe, it was quite big, especially made by Oslo, in the Nobel Peace Committee, made it too big, you know. Nonetheless, I told myself, I'm a Tibetan. You know, someone got to do this job. A Tibetan got to do this job, and it happens to be me, and I'll do it. Now, if you look at my job description, it's simple and difficult also. Simple in the sense I'm supposed to be, let's say I'm here in Oslo, I'm saying something that will move the Norwegian people and the Norwegian leaders to support Tibet so strongly, it will press the Chinese government to listen to and solve the issue of Tibet peacefully. That's my job description. Now, given the recent experience now, Norwegian leaders, I think we have to leave it aside. Now I have to try with the people now. So here I am today. So if you're all convinced, then we'll march. Now wherever we have to march, and then convince Norwegian leaders to press the Chinese government to solve the issue of Tibet peacefully. That's what I'm supposed to do, from capital to capital to capital. While I do that, I'm supposed to reach out to 1.3 billion Chinese to impress them that we are nonviolent, we believe in peace, we believe in friendship. Be reasonable, let's be friends. Let's solve this issue of Tibet. And we have to assume that's an easy job. 1.3 billion Chinese will listen to me, you know. At the same time, I'm supposed to keep the morale and the courage and hope of Tibetans inside Tibet especially. 6 million Tibetans inside Tibet, alive and strong. Every day they look at Dharamsala and say, what is it doing now? Is it able to persuade world leaders to support us? Is it able to persuade Norwegian leaders to meet His Holiness Dalai Lama? What is it doing? Every day you have to send a message of hope. Because once hope is gone, and your struggle is, if not gone, at least will be very weak. You're supposed to do that. Hence, this Tibetan civilization is at stake. Tibetan struggle is at stake. Tibetan identity is at stake. Nonetheless, that's my job description. So on March 10th, when His Holiness made the decision to separate the two, I thought of myself. Then you start thinking. And after some time, I stopped thinking because, you know, you reach paralysis through analysis. If you analyze too much, then my job becomes too difficult, or too complex, too complicated, too challenging. I stopped thinking and I said, you know, this is my karma. This is my destiny. I was born a Tibetan. This is the job I'm given, and I'll do the best I can, move forward. Why? As a human being. And then Buddhist way of thinking is very simple. You are born and you die. These are two sides of the same coin. No one can escape death because you are born. So we are going to die anyways. So that's very liberating. On the one hand, it's very fatalistic and very cynical, but on the other hand, it's very liberating. Hey, you are going to die. So while you live, do something for your people, for humanity, for nonviolence, for peace. And that's what I believe. That's what I think I'm in. And then, as long as you do something in your life, it's worth living. So in that sense, I look at my job as a fantastic opportunity and an honor given to me by Tibetans. Because normal life, you're born, you live, maybe with $1 billion or $100 in your pocket, but you die anyways. You don't get opportunities like me, you know? I'm given this opportunity to do something. We all talk about, you know, making this world a better place, making humanity a better place, you know, doing something. You want to be in the right side of history, right? That's what this breakfast meeting is all about as well. I was told Bill Gates came here last time. So did he leave his wallet here? I was told pick it up. No? Okay. That would have made my job a little easier, but okay. Now, this is what it's all about. And then I'm given this opportunity, on the other hand, you know, to contribute something for humanity. If Tibet succeeds, It will be a success not just of 6 million Tibetans. It will be a success of non-violence. It will be a success of peaceful means. It will be a success of an ancient civilization being revived and preserved. It will be a success of democracy. It will be a success of freedom. It will be a success of human rights. That's why I do believe, I firmly believe, I'm on the right side of history. This is a good opportunity to, despite all odds, despite challenges of Himalayan proportion, I and my team are taking the steps. But then we are from Himalayan region anyway, so we are genetically adapted in climbing the Himalayan mountains. So when you say challenges of Himalayan proportion, we say, hey, it's easy walk, you know. So we will climb the mountain. We will reach the mountain top. When that day comes, it will be because of you all people. It will be because even though you spend some time on Thursday morning to come here, to listen to what I have to say, even though I have no good news to share or fun stories to share, even though I have a sad story to share, but we all are part of this journey to make this sad story into a fantastic story. When that day comes, that will be one of the best stories of the 21st century, and we will make that happen. Till then, be with us. Thank you very much.